Sorry, I apologize, FOI. Okay, this meeting is now being recorded. Later on our agenda, we're actually going to review a protocol for these fully remote meetings. And one of the protocols is that all speakers must clearly state their name and title, if applicable, before speaking. Obviously, so remote participants can understand who is speaking. Again, I know Amanda probably knows our voices, but let's try to make sure, I'll try to make sure that a listener and anybody who might be listening to this in the future knows who is speaking. So I'll try to be mindful of that. Okay. Item 4 under, let's see. Oh, item 5, informational items. I don't have any. Item 6, old business. Discussion to review town resolutions, to clean up documents. Roxanne was saying she's talking with the town clerk about that, and we will have a conversation about whether or not we want to reach back literally several decades and renumber from the 80s, or if we want to sort of draw a line in the sand and start renumbering resolutions going forward. The idea is, like renumbering the ordinances, to make them easier to find. So, any thoughts about that?
Whatever the. No thoughts.
Okay. I see
Not
calling.
get my agenda to move. Any suggestions? Oh,
I
wait.
think Cassandra can do that, Mary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if
I don't need to do it. You'll do it. Okay.
is that what we're trying to look at?
I've got in front of me now, Chapter 6, motions, resolutions, and ordinances.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You're the one that moves the, okay, you move the agenda. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, because I shared my screen, but you could open yours up in another window so you can control it for yourself.
That's okay.
Excuse me. I see call-in user number 4. John, did you call in on your phone also?
No, I'm on my laptop.
And you're using your laptop microphone?
Yes.
Amanda, did you also call in, or are you using the mic on your computer?
Mic is off.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
No,
Is
I'm
that
on my
you?
I'm on my computer.
You're on your computer. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to identify who call-in user number 4 is, if I could.
I believe that could be me, Mike Morelli.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Mike.
Thank you.
First time I've used this thing, so I'm a little shaky on it also.
That's okay.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, Mike, thank you for thanks for letting us know it's you. I'm going to write your name on the attendance.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move. So John and Mary, we are not going to further discuss the town resolutions tonight, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's move on to what I believe Mike called in for. Item 2, continued discussion regarding the proposed an ordinance regarding control of dogs in parks and recreation areas, school property, and the historic district. Okay. So I spoke with Chief Rich. Wait a minute. Let me pull that up. Okay. I spoke with Chief Rich and the ACO. And they agree that the state statute is plenty for them to act if a dog is out of control, or making a mess. Specifically, the roaming statute and the nuisance statute allow them to do their job. The ACO feels that the enforcement is that people don't call. So, we're certainly within our rights by state statute to go ahead and do a dog leash ordinance. We know that. But I just for the record, I had said I was going to follow up with them, and they are in favor of better signage at the parks and historic sites and all the, the places we're talking about. So they did, however, the ACO feels it will be confusing if we designate one trail or a couple of trails as leash free. That doesn't mean we can't do it. She just feels like it's going to be confusing to the public. But so that's just one thought. John and Mary, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I would say if you're going to do a leash-free area, it'd be an entire park. So the entire park is leash-free, not just a couple trails in the park. You either do that or ban them or on a leash everywhere.
I talked to Scott Johnson, the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, and he was going to try to identify areas on property under their control where dogs would be not allowed. But I'm not sure he got back to you yet with that.
Where they would be not allowed at all? So
Well, like for instance, on the playing fields where,
absolutely.
yeah, okay, and he needs to identify those things.
Okay.
Do that.
Okay. So we had heard from
You
him.
would just add to the, add maybe an appendix. Well, whether or not we do the ordinance. You seemed to be hesitating about whether or not we need to do an ordinance, considering the state statutes seems to cover a lot of what we are talking about.
Right. So the state statute verbiage is that the dog must be under the owner's control.
Mhm.
Our ordinance is to further require that dogs be on a leash.
Okay, and it doesn't mention leash in the state statute?
No,
Okay.
nope, it just needs to be under the owner's control. Now, the other thing about this is, sorry. So let's, for example, say my neighbor has a dog. That dog is free to run the neighbor's property without a leash. That dog is free to run, on the streets as long as it's under the owner's control. Which means, is it trained to come when it's called? It could be on 100-foot leash. I don't know. So, but the ACO was saying that if a dog is running the neighborhood out of control and bites someone, the state statute is enough for her to act, essentially take the dog, they quarantine the dog, there are things they can do. If someone is bitten, that person could pursue damages under a civil claim. Whether or not people do, I don't know. I personally don't think we could possibly write an ordinance that would make it so that no one is ever offended by a dog anywhere in Ledyard or Gales Ferry. So,
Also add to the signs that dogs must be on a leash.
right.
That could be just part of the signage.
Right. So I think where we left off was that we were going to pursue the leash rule on historic properties, so the ordinance is in front of us. Public lands, including sidewalks, streets, park, beach, field, other recreation areas under the control of Ledyard Department of Parks and Rec, any school property, Board of Ed property, historic property. We were gonna pursue the leash rule. However, in an appendix, Mike was gonna talk with the Conservation Commission about identifying at least one property, perhaps more, that could be designated leash-free. So Mike, do you want to chime in there here?
Yes. Again, like one gentleman said earlier this evening, you know, either have them leashed everywhere or have them open in parks. The areas that the commission would be considering would not be parks. They are trails. So that really wouldn't, you know, be a confusion. And again, like we spoke about earlier about signage, you know, not only would be signage on the areas where the dogs were not permitted, it would be up to the Conservation Commission to post signage on the 1 or 2 trails that we designated.
Okay. And have you, you know, I don't know that it's actually critical right now. I think we agreed too that naming those trails in an appendix on the ordinance would make it pretty simple to add or subtract without changing the whole ordinance.
Dombrowski suggested that.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that seems a reasonable expectation, yes.
And then Parks and Rec could include the specific areas that they did not want any dogs.
Strict no dogs.
Yes.
Strict no dogs because the children are playing on that particular field and certainly within the boundaries of that field.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So we're
If I'm
looking
not
to,
mistaken, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken, I think some of the regulations and rules of some of the other municipalities, they have got very similar thing to that. They'll have like appendix with stating every single thing after it.
Okay. So let's see. I'm glancing through this again. So the requirement on public property, unless it is otherwise designated, will be, generally it will be the dog, there's either no dogs allowed or the animal must be on a leash no longer than 10 feet. There was some pushback at the public hearing that even 10 feet is too long. Are there thoughts about that?
I'm just thinking 6 feet from each other.
What is the width of our trails? I mean, if it's 10, if it's 20, if it's 6, that's still the width of the trail.
Is it the width or is it how far away the animal is? Like, is the animal 10 feet in front of you?
Well, if you have at least 10 feet and the trail is 6 feet, 6 feet wide, the owner is still responsible for shortening his leash so the dog is not a nuisance. So, 10 feet, 6 feet, he still has, the dog owners still have to assume some responsibility for their dogs. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if the length is really going to be that much of a consideration.
Okay. Okay, we can move on from that then. So it sounds like what we're looking for at this point is an appendix from Scott Johnson, specifically listing areas that are strictly off limits to dogs, our pets. And then an appendix from the Conservation Commission listing at least one trail, possibly more, that could potentially be a leash-free area. And then it's the third thing I think we need to decide on is the signage and what they should say. I'm nervous that we are going to have signs that are just too cumbersome, but they need to say what they need to say.
Well, they could just say dogs must be on a leash or not be on a leash.
Well, I believe we should also post the non-emergency number for the police and the ACO.
Correct, I agree.
And Chief Rich and Christina agreed that those should be posted at every park and trailhead.
Mhm.
That'd be fine.
Because again, part of their concern is people aren't reporting these things to the police. What do? They go on Facebook and complain there.
Ah,
So, okay, well, we're certainly not ready to move on this tonight, but I think we do have our next steps, right? Which is an appendix from Scott Johnson, an appendix from, or just, a statement from the Conservation Commission. And then I'll take a stab at what the signs might read, if everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, it'd be a good place to start.
are there any kind of signs that would sort of hit you instead of just a regular sign? Because Scott said in many of the parks and recreation areas, there are signs, nobody pays attention. There's signs that would just make you stop, maybe a color or something that would make you read it, look at it, as
Yeah.
opposed to ignoring it.
If you posted the fine below it,
I don't know if that would do it.
Yeah. People pay attention to the dollar sign.
Well, that's a great point. So it's not just the wording, it's the location of the signs.
And the color, I mean, I'm sure that there's people out there who do signs. Like, for instance, we could ask Tony Sibilia, are there different colors, different something that would catch your attention and make you pay attention?
Okay,
Think about it.
all right, that's good. I'll talk with Tony about that. All right. Anything further on this, on the dog leash ordinance?
Nope, I'm all set.
I'm all set.
no, I'm fine. I'm
All
fine.
right. Mike, thank you for calling in. You are certainly welcome to stay with us, but we aren't going to be offended if you decide you want to hang up on us now.
I think I'll go and get something for dinner. I thank you.
I don't blame you at all. Thanks for calling in, Mike.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. We're doing well here. We're doing all right, guys. Okay.
Noise.
We got this.
I know. Okay, item 3 is the discussion and possible action to update ordinance number 001-011. Wish this would go away. Oh, there we go. An ordinance establishing a youth services board for the town of Ledyard. Okay, so here we are. Sorry, scrolling. Don't make everybody dizzy. Okay, so the background information on this is that, Mary, I think you had shared that it was a few months back, the mayor dissolved the social services board.
Correct.
We need,
First reduce the number of meetings, and then he pretty much, people were not showing up, and so he just dissolved the social services board, but at the same time said he was going to include youth services and social services into one committee.
okay. And so that's what's in front of us, is the combining of those two. It sounds like we do.
Why is it called an establishing a youth and social services committee as opposed to a commission?
I don't know.
You know, we have the Conservation Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, this is youth services. I mean, I don't know the difference, but we should find out.
Okay, that's a good
Might
point.
not, it might not make any difference. It may not make any difference.
Okay, let me write that down. We could still move this tonight and then make that change at the full
Sure.
council if you'd like.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like that in order to get certain grants, we need to have this board established.
Yes, for the youth counselor to get, part of her salary comes from grants.
Right, okay. I did notice that in section 5, wait a minute.
I think we talked about changing, forgot where it was now.
I'm sorry, I'm scrolling all over the place. I saw, it was just a typo that said, oh, here it is. That members appointed will serve, it says for a 2 and 3 year, see that?
Mhm.
So,
Instead of everybody going out at one time, they would stagger the terms.
oh, so some will be appointed for 2 and some for 3?
That's the idea, yes.
Just need to change the wording on that sentence.
Right,
That's right now it says you'll serve for 2 3-year terms.
Oh, yeah. For 2 or 3 year term.
okay,
When somebody's appointed, they're either appointed for a 2 year term or a 3 year term. So everybody doesn't, retire at the same time.
right. So how would we determine that?
Well, that would be up to the mayor because the mayor is the appointing authority here.
Okay,
So he would decide who should be on for, because I don't think that's in the ordinance.
Well, you can just ask the members or have a lottery drawing.
Or you can say, if it's a 7-member committee initially, you could say 3 and 4. 3 for a 2 year term and 4 for a 3 year term.
okay. Do we need to clarify this before we move on it?
No, because I think that's, unless we just, as John said, change the wording so it's we can understand it better. Mayor shall
So-
appoint 7 who shall serve for a 2 year or 3 year term.
Okay, so we're just gonna add that in. All right. Mary, did you have another question about this?
I had a question between, I think I had asked the last time about, you were going to call it a program instead of,
Yes. Instead of a department.
yes, because really it's a department of one.
Right. Right.
And I'm not sure where it is now on on the scroll.
I don't see that the change was made, and I'm not confident that I effectively included that in my notes to Roxanne.
Okay.
But still, we could make that amendment.
If we, where is it on here? If you scroll some more, maybe we'll find it. No, I think it's up closer to the. Shall serve.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right. Youth and Services Department.
Yeah, youth and will be responsible for receiving and reviewing youth and social services, I would say reports, because we're really not talking about a department. Department reports or program reports, maybe program reports would be better instead of the word department.
Yeah.
Okay, and here for the youth and social services. Community outreach. Oh, they've got the word department in 3 spots here.
Right.
Ribbit youth and social services materials to the community. You can take it out there and just, and the committee shall perform services. The
I
committee.
think it works. I think it works if we, across the board, change the word department to program.
Okay, committee shall perform community outreach and seek potential partnerships for the youth and social services, programs.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think if we just take out the word, because like I said, there really is no department.
Right. Okay. John, any thoughts on that?
I'm fine with that. It sounds good to me.
Okay. So if we change the word department to program,
The committee will be responsible for receiving and reviewing youth and social services program reports to identify. The committee shall perform community seek potential for youth and social services. For youth and social services, the committee shall perform community outreach and seek potential partnerships for youth and social services programs. The committee shall distribute youth and social services materials to the community and work to identify youth and families in individuals in need. So you can take it out on those 3 places.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh,
Okay.
so strike it the last 3 times, just change it to program the first time and strike it.
Will be yes, yes. The last time would be right, youth and social services materials, not department. Take out department. And that one, and the others just change department to programs.
Okay. So if
And
we
the
make
next-
that change and we include the word or between the 2 or 3-year terms, are we ready to move this and recommend it to the full council?
Okay, wait, one more. The committee shall annually review youth and social services, the budget. Committee.
Actually, I think it's cleaner to just change the word department to program every time.
Okay.
'Cause I think it reads the
budget, yeah.
same.
Yeah, you got to be consistent across the board.
Yeah. The committee shall annually review the youth and social services budget. Program
Youth and
budget.
Social services program budget.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to make a motion. Are we ready?
Yep, we're ready.
All right. So I move that we recommend to the council to approve an ordinance number 001-011, an ordinance establishing a youth services board for the town of Ledyard with a couple of edits.
Right, and now an ordinance establishing a youth services board. I mean, we're establishing a youth and social services. And then my question is, instead of board, should this be committee or commission?
We've got, all right, you know what? I think we shouldn't move this tonight.
All right.
Yeah. There's too many kooky you're right, because
once it's called a board, and other times it's committee. And my question is, what's the difference between if we call it a committee or a commission?
right,
Or a
right.
board, but we need to pick one.
Okay,
Isn't that defined in the charter?
that's a good question, John.
The social service, I think in the charter, it's called Social Services Board. But but I could be wrong. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
And John, I think you had a concern that one of the members was going to be under 21.
Yeah, but I think that was explained to me last time that that was fine.
Okay, okay,
I forget what Andrea said, but I was fine with the explanation with it.
okay.
I got a copy of the charter around here somewhere in my mess. That's why the camera's off. You guys can't see my office. I don't know where it is.
Camera keeps you honest, man.
Yeah.
I think it's called board in the charter.
I also just want to point out that I see Eric Treaster on the call. He's been here for several minutes. Hello, Eric.
He may not have, I just see the black headphones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? I'll get those questions answered and we'll get this moved next time.
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. So let's move on to any other old business proper to come before the committee?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, seeing none, on to new business. I move that we appoint Mr. John J. Crowley, U, 1914 Center Groton Road. I need to get better at this. There we go. Center Groton Road, Ledyard, to the Cemetery Committee for a 3-year term ending April 26th, 2023, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Newton.
Second.
So, Mr. Crowley is an attorney who has actually provided some legal counsel to the Cemetery Committee for Historic Properties. And now he's interested in serving on the committee.
Good.
Yeah. All right, any other comments or questions?
No.
No.
Sounds good to me.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Next on the, let's see. I make a motion that we adopt a proposed protocols for remote meeting participation as contained in the draft dated April 6th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you, John. Okay, did everyone read the,
I can't see. Oh, okay, here you go.
there we go. Okay, so
I think, did Roxanne say that this is just for this period while the coronavirus is rampant?
yes.
Is that defined in the opening paragraph?
Right.
Okay.
So the difference is that we've long had a remote meeting policy in that if the meeting is taking place as usual in the council chambers, most members are physically present. A member or two could still participate remotely, and there are rules around that. So if I'm traveling and I want to participate in the meeting, I can still call in and vote as long, there are rules about how that operates. What did not exist was the ability to have an entire meeting run remotely. Like, so as we are now, we're all in our own homes.
Okay.
Excuse me. So this is to allow for that. Roxanne's point is that this is a temporary measure. We're not moving to this permanently. And she suggested we may want to consider language to, make sure everyone knows it's a temporary measure. But I think the opening paragraph mentions that this is to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The town council temporarily authorized full member remote meeting participation. I think it's already implied that this has everything to do with COVID-19, and that I think we'll need to remember at some point to rescind this.
Okay,
But I think it's implied that there's an end date to this, even though we don't know what that date is.
okay.
But the meeting protocol is really for FOIA consistency. And so some of the rules include speakers identifying themselves. And I should have mentioned, I named Mike Morelli. I did not identify him as the chairman of the Conservation Commission. I should have done that. I'll get better at this. So it's just making sure that everyone knows who is on the call, who is speaking, so that FOIA guidelines are met. Did anyone have any questions or concerns about the protocols?
No, none.
No, none.
Okay. Then I make a motion that we adopt this proposed protocols for, oh, I already made the motion, sorry. All right, are we ready to vote?
We are.
We are.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Okay. And finally, I make a motion that we adopt proposed amendments to ordinance 200-010, an ordinance establishing retirement plans and a retirement board for the Town of Ledyard general government and Board of Education employees as contained in the draft dated March 30th, 2020.
Second.
I'm trying to, thank you, John. Here we go.
Okay, so we're just amending what's already in place, or?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the combination of two ordinances that we did not tidy up when we did the ordinance overhaul.
Okay.
So it combines the retirement board and the pension board. But John Rodolico called me earlier and wanted to highlight probably the most important change is the alternate members. So they're adding 2 alternate members who shall have full voting rights when filling in for a regular voting member. Currently, the pension board does not have alternates, and the board is largely retirees who travel a lot. And they would very much benefit from having alternate members.
Okay.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
Fine with that too.
I think
Like
it's
a
pretty
good
straight.
idea.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. All right, any other questions or comments?
None.
Are we ready
None.
to vote?
We are.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. All right, any other new business proper to come before the committee?
So
Oh.
set a public hearing
Sorry,
is
review
for
the
this.
short-term rental application. Okay, sorry, I didn't know she put it on here.
Oh, okay. Back up a second, on the pension ordinance. Don't we need to set a public hearing for that?
I don't think so, because it's not a new ordinance.
Okay, no, I know it's not a new ordinance. But we're changing, well, it may not be necessary. Usually when you adjust, amend an ordinance, depending on what the issue is, you may need to have a public hearing, but you'll need, just check that.
Okay. We'll make a note to see if that is, where am I? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay. So item 4 is review of the short-term rental application form as contained in the draft. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to come up on the screen.
Oh, here it is.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. All right. So this is the application that Liz came up with after conferring with a couple of different people, and I think she checked with other planners. And I had submitted some changes to her. Honestly, so I'm a little confused about this part because I was not clear that the admin committee needed to approve the application form. I considered that to be more of an execution piece that the planner does. She had asked the admin committee for input and I gave her some. But my understanding is that any input we provide is sort of a courtesy and a clarification. That's but I could be wrong about that.
I don't have any problem with the application.
John, did you have a chance to look it over?
Can you scroll up a little bit? See the bottom? Oh, this looks fine.
I had suggested a couple of changes to make sure the language was consistent throughout. But I thought it was pretty good, and I'm going to keep saying, I expect we're going to learn some things.
It's going to be a learning process for the next 2 years on this issue.
I think so. So, you know, I already submitted to Liz my clarifications and they're included here. So I don't have anything further on this. And yeah, we don't need to vote on it, right? I'm even looking at how Roxanne has it on the agenda. This isn't something we need to move on. It was just something for us to review.
I think we need to have it in place in case people, you know, once the town opens up again, you know, people may start looking for some rental. So it would be good to have it ready to go.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
we can just,
number 6 under that 2-hour time frame on number 6. That doesn't seem realistic.
where are you?
Right there. Upon receiving a complaint, the permit holder shall respond within 2 hours of complaints regarding condition, operation, yada yada yada. Well, if they're out of town or at work, or you know more than 2 hours away.
This is John. This is the person that's lives next door to you. That's the LPR. That's the person that is going to act in your place if there's a problem at your STR.
Like I said, STR permit holder, wouldn't that be
Or
the owner?
LPR. Or LPR. That's
That's the representative. Okay.
Yeah, the LPR is what, the local property representative.
That's the word, right? He's your friend or your neighbor who's going to sort of watch out for your property when you're not there. And he has 2 hours to respond. I think that's reasonable.
I do too. That's your property's babysitter, and they agreed to be the babysitter,
Yeah.
and they better respond quickly if there's a problem.
Okay, I see that as being problematic. If there's a problem at 10 o'clock in the morning and everyone's at work, Are they supposed to leave work and go address the issue?
Well, I guess it depends on how the seriousness of it too.
It just seems like a bit much.
Okay.
Well, it says they shall respond. I think what we're trying to eliminate is having nobody respond for 24 hours.
Well, nobody responsible.
Right. Somebody, I mean, even if you can get somebody on the phone within 2 hours to start solving a problem.
Start the process. Okay, you put it that way, it makes more sense.
Right. Yeah, they'll have a phone number they can call.
Right.
All right. All right. I'm fine with that now.
Okay. Okay. So we don't even have to vote on this. We can just let Liz know we reviewed it.
Mhm.
All right. On
All right.
to item 5. Any other new business proper to come before the committee?
None.
None.
Hearing none. This meeting is adjourned at 6:19 p.m.
Hey, good job.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Another successful remote meeting. Go us.
Right. So now down the bottom of the screen is a red X. Is that what we click to get out?
Too many things open.
Oh.
I have to stop. Let me stop recording. Wait a minute. Recorder. Okay, I'm going to stop recording the meeting.
Mary, it is the red X.